Hello, my name is Zan Phillips, and here's another environmental observation. And for this, I'm going to use the official stick. And it's a serious one, this, in some respects, because we're in a sort of tricky position at the moment, and as a society. And I'm going to try and use this to explain where we are exactly and potentially what's going to happen in the future. Because at one end, we have the Greens. This is probably, as you might guess, this is where I live. And I think it's very fair to say that these are the people who really care. These are people who care about the planet, care about people, care about animals and nature and plants, forward thinking, generally, looking to the future, worried, naturally, about the future because they've listened to the science and they are concerned. And since, let's say, 1992 and the Rio summit, they've been saying we've got to do something about it. Now, what you should remember is 1992, the Rio summit, there was a lot of green activity before then. In fact, the green agenda was really riding high in the polls. In fact, very similar to how it is now. That's why the Rio summit happened. So there was a lot going on in the 80s leading up to that. So we got the green people here, the carers. Between them and the people who are in the red corner, so to speak, it's probably you, okay? But in here, these are the people, it's very tempting to call them climate deniers, okay? But they're not. These are people who just generally want things to stay the same. They're quite happy as they are. They don't like change. People up here are quite happy to change. They think change is a good thing because it's going to save the planet and save the population. But generally here, people who don't like change, they like things as they are. And they are dug in. In fact, some of them are so dug in, they're actually building shelters and storing food. Strange enough, changing in some respects, but at the same time, entrenched. And they firmly believe they're right. They think they're as much as right as these people are right, which is the problem we got here. We've got two sides that think they're right. This bit here, I've decided to illustrate as probably the politicians and the big corporations, obviously oil, pharmaceuticals, airlines, you name it. Anyone who's got an interest in making money, but also keeping the planet going. They don't like change either. If you think about all the banking crises that have happened, the first thing people say is, what about the economy? Keep the economy stable. The economy has to be stable. They don't like change either. And what these people over here are suggesting, and the scientists, they're suggesting that change should happen. So they're quite happy for things to stay the same. They're quite aligned with these people in many respects. And in some respects, it's possibly why we're seeing so many billionaires get into politics and into the media, because they don't want change either. The average age of a billionaire is about 65. And so if you lose your money, it's going to be very hard to be a billionaire again. So what they want is stability. They don't want change. So we've got a problem in that they think they're right. They think they're right. And these people are waiting to see what happens. Now, I interviewed a chap called Charlie Gardner. And he's actually Dr. Charlie Gardner, official title. And he had a very good analogy about a room full of people and the fire alarm goes off. And what happens is most people just sit there waiting. Fire alarm's gone off. Can't see a fire. Can't smell a fire. No one's moving. And it's only when the first person moves does everyone else think, yep, there is an emergency. I'm going to move. And for everyone in this section, which is potentially you see some movement over here, but there's not much movement over there, and there's definitely no movement here. Begrudging. 2050 is the key date that everyone's got in their mind, but as we've seen recently, the weather is becoming even more unpredictable. And it's, hurricanes are developing really quickly, and they're much stronger. It could be just a blip, but it might not be. And this is the issue we have here, and I've got a funny feeling at some point for the people in this, there's going to be something that happens that makes them realize they got to change. And once that happens, then we might see some movement. But the other thing that is I find really interesting is that the similarities between both are right. They think they're right. But maybe the best way to think about this is, what if they're wrong? If the green side are wrong, and we follow what they want to do and we're wrong, it means we end up with a pretty nice planet. Air is good, water is good, plant life is restored, marine collapse doesn't happen. Marine collapse is something we don't talk about much, but potentially 10, 15, 20 years' time, the sea life will collapse. All of that will be avoided if we follow what they are suggesting. If they're wrong, doesn't matter. We've got a beautiful planet. If this lot are wrong, and we don't change, and we stay as we are, then potentially we end up with a very serious situation. And if we get marine collapse, then we're looking at something really bad, because most big populations are on the coast. And that's when it gets serious. So rather than thinking about who is right, is like, which one don't you want to be wrong? And that's the dilemma we're on at the moment. My name is Anne Phillips, and that's another environmental observation.